again, it has been a while that I've posted anything. Life happens, but we're here now. And as I've mentioned in previous videos, I want to discuss the journey that I have as being a special needs mom to my two boys, Jeremiah and Elijah. My son Jeremiah is 26 years old now, and Elijah is my 12-year-old. Now, I must tell you, I ask for your patience as I'm learning how to edit YouTube videos. I am in no way a professional YouTuber. I mean, I've seen the most impeccable videos that are professionally done and well done, I must say. But as for me, I'm learning. I'm learning through iMovie that I've been using. Maybe some of you are familiar with iMovie. That will help you to edit a YouTube video, how to put audio on it, how to do an intro, how to do an outro, things of that nature. And so this is where I'm at right now, so please be patient. As of now, I want to discuss the journey that I'm having with Jeremiah and Elijah. Now, what inspired me to do this recent YouTube video is the fact that I have been on a leave of absence from work since February 16th. Why, you say, is because I had a surgery February 16th that I will go into a little bit more detail as the video progresses. And you'll see how that ties into Jeremiah and Elijah. I mentioned in other times that I am a strong believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, and I believe that there is a strong correlation between my relationship with the Lord and my journey, specifically with Jeremiah, because he's impacted my life as far as how I pray and things of that nature to the Lord. And so this leads me to what I want to explain to you now. As I've had a leave of absence, I've spent some time, I've had some time to clean and things like that, some deep cleaning and spring cleaning, right? With spring just coming upon us this past Tuesday. I have a file cabinet in my bedroom. This file cabinet is up to my waist. It's a black file cabinet. Now, I had decided to clean out this file cabinet, and as I was cleaning it, I came across some old IEPs that my son Jeremiah had when he was a toddler. Now, honestly speaking, although that file cabinet has been sitting in my bedroom for a long time, I honestly never opened up that second drawer. I've only seen folders in it, and I never went through it until I decided to clean it. I looked through it, I decided to clean it, and lo and behold, I see all of these old IEPs from my son Jeremiah. And I had no idea that they were there. Not only did I have any idea that they were there, I was pleasantly surprised that they were there because I had forgotten a lot of the stuff. Mind you, it's been like 20-something years. 24 years I've seen his old IEPs. I honestly thought I may have misplaced them or threw them out. Thankfully, I haven't. Now I'm able to share my journey with Jeremiah, specifically with the things that I saw on his IEP. And so for those of you who are not familiar with what an IEP is, now I can only speak for myself in the state of New York where I reside. In your state, you may not have an IEP. It may be another educational legal document afforded to your special needs child once they start pre-K or once they go into schooling. This is a document that is given to them. The IEP affords your special needs child a fair and appropriate program in the least restrictive environment possible. This is important because it's a safeguard for your child. For example, if your child needs occupational, speech, or physical therapy, the IEP ensures that they get these services. And if they're not getting those services, you have every right to get legal representation to make sure that your child is getting these services. Not only that, the IEP also has within it a customized educational program that is fit for your son or your daughter. This not only includes neurological or developmental disorders, this also includes your child with a physical disability, although it may be slightly different in the form of what is called a 504 plan. I am not familiar with a 504 plan because my children are both on the autism spectrum. They do not and have not been in a wheelchair, so I can't really speak from that perspective. However, I would research it in your state, and if you want to learn more about the IEP process specifically, I have some previous videos that I've had over the years. You can go back and look at those. In any event, I looked at my son's, Jeremiah's IEP, and I was reading through it. Now, the IEP has also objectives and goals and the needs of your son or daughter, including if they need a bus to pick them up, the school bus. Do they need a school bus to pick them up? Make sure that it's an air-conditioned school bus. That all has to be on there. This is important. In case in the future you are seeking to sue the Board of Ed, for example, you have it as a paper trail on the IEP, the services that they're supposed to be getting, just for your information. Now, as I looked at Jeremiah's IEP, I was reading how he had a 15-month cognitive delay, although he was 3 years old. I'm so sorry for the background noise. That's my heat coming up. If you live in an apartment, then you know that's heat that comes up. It's just what it is. And so I'm looking at his IEP, and it says how he was delayed 15 months here, 10 months old there, very delayed reading, things of that nature. Speaking, he didn't speak till later on. And so it was good that I was reading this, because all of the memories really just kept flooding back into what he was able to do and what he was not able to do. I also read on there how he was very impulsive, and upon his psychological evaluation that connects very closely to the IEP, the professionals that were observing and evaluating him saw how impulsive he was, saw how hyper he is, and many times that's one of the key characteristics of an autistic child. Specifically with him, he was very impulsive and things like that. And so I segue into 3 stories I want to share with you as to why I had to make a certain decision, which is controversial to some. I get it. But this is my story with my journey with my children, specifically Jeremiah, as I share with you the 3 stories. Now, I just mentioned how hyper and impulsive he was, right? It's all written in his legal documents throughout the schooling years that he was in school. Now, the first story was when he was about 3 years old. My son is stocky to begin with. He's a taller than most toddler. You'll see why that ties into the story. We were going out of the apartment into the community to run some errands. And this particular day, we were going to the supermarket. Now, at the time, I lived on Fordham Road section of the Bronx. Some of you can relate to the Fordham Road section of the Bronx. If you're from the Bronx, then you know. We were waiting at Webster Avenue. Those of you who are familiar with Webster Avenue is a really busy street. It's one of the main roads where there's public city buses on there. There's a lot of cars coming in and out. There's always heavy traffic for the most part, and there are many commercial trucks, many delivery trucks going through there. And so it's a very busy street with lots of people, mind you. And this particular day, I was with my son Jeremiah, waiting for the light to turn green so that we can go now, waiting for the light to turn red so that we can now go walk across. And so as we were waiting there at the light, my then husband David was to the left of me, and then I had Jeremiah to the right of me. I had Jeremiah by the hand, pretty snug, because I knew of his impulsivity and how quickly he would just jolt himself. Or so I thought I had him, with a good grip, right? We were just seconds away from the crosswalk light to change when Jeremiah had it in his thinking to just yank himself off of my hand. Mind you, there's a huge, busy intersection where now there's a truck coming, commercial truck. Jeremiah yanks himself from my hand and he begins to bolt across the street. He had his own green light going. For those of you that know, autistic children, when they are impulsive and they don't think things through, they don't have too much of a sense of danger or awareness around them. All they see is a green light and there they go. So Jeremiah bolts across the street. I had literally a few seconds. My adrenaline started pumping. I ran and I scooped him up hard enough where he got scared. He starts screaming before the truck came barreling down. Now, if you know of those big rig trucks, they can't see a toddler crossing the street. Although Jeremiah is a stocky, tall child at the time, that truck was not going to see my son. He would have hit him head on. And so I had a few minutes. I scooped him up in my arms and ran back quick across the street, where now there's a small commotion around me. I mentioned how it was a busy street. There was a lot of people that day, and they said, "Is he okay? Is everything, are you okay?" My heart was in my throat. His dad's nerves were shot. My nerves were shot. Needless to say, we ended up going home. I did nothing. I couldn't even think straight. I almost lost my son. That was the first story. Now, the second story that I want to share with you was in a doctor's appointment I had with Jeremiah. Now, when you have a hyper child, as some of you can relate, strollers are a godsend, okay? They're a godsend because you can keep them secure in a stroller. They have safety belts. You snap them in that stroller. They can't really do much in there except look around. In this doctor's appointment, it was me, myself, and Jeremiah. I'd gone in. The staff already knew us because once a month Jeremiah would go in for his monthly evaluation or physical, what have you. The building we went in was a 3-story building. In this 3-story building, the first floor was all medical offices, small little offices in there, first floor. Second and third floor were subspecialties in the medical field. First floor was for special needs and their families who had primary care doctor's appointments, psychological evaluation appointments, things of that nature. Now, when you're in a commercial building, you have what are water sprinkles on the top. Some office commercial buildings may have, the red fire drills on the walls. Then you have doors with a fire exit bar across the doors, right? Some vary. In the building I was in, there was the fire extinguishers in different points of the building. Then they had I'm sorry, I can't think of it now, but it was like a fire alarms, red, on the walls of the sides of the building, plus the fire exit doors, where it would require you to push the bar out, and then you could leave and exit the building safely. On this day, Jeremiah was in the stroller. We were waiting to be called in. He got very antsy right away. His attention span is at 0 now, so I didn't really expect him to stay in there too long. But I was trying to keep him distracted nonetheless. Jeremiah decides, I want out of this stroller. He was getting antsy. So to prevent a meltdown, I took him out of the stroller, but I knew to keep him in earshot and in eye range of where he was. So I take him out of the stroller and he proceeds to bolt really fast down the hall to the fire exit door. Before I had a chance to catch up to him, I'm telling you, this toddler was fast. He had pushed straight through that door. And yes, all of the fire alarms went off in each of the floors of the building. And yes, the building had to be totally evacuated. The building was evacuated. we all made our way out of the building. Thankfully, the staff knew us well enough to know, since they knew my journey with Jeremiah. They knew that he was on the spectrum. They knew how he would have his occasional meltdowns. They were gracious. They understood. They said, "No big deal, Mom. We understand." But yes, the fire department did come in case you were wondering. And they had to turn off the fire drills, fire alarms, what have you. And now Jeremiah is coming back in because the noise is too much and he's covering his ears. So I'm having to console him. Everything got straightened out. Now, this is the third story I want to share with you to let you know of a decision I had to make that was controversial. Jeremiah, I decided to take him to the city park. The parks are a wonderful way for these children, not just in general, but I think the special needs children really need the park. They need that socialization, even though they may not physically interact with the child. They need to be around other children in a playful setting. I made it my business to take my son to the park at least 3 times a week. I took him to the park in my community. Everything was fine. I pushed him on the swing. He went down the slide. We were having a great time. I had turned to get a bottle of water because I was thirsty out of his baby's bag. When I turned, lo and behold, he was gone. It was literally a few seconds, but that's all it took for my son to leave my side. When I tell you he was gone for a whole 5 minutes, it felt like 5 hours. I kid you not. I looked everywhere, high and low. I was trying not to lose it because I said, "Lord, you know my journey with Jeremiah. You know how he is. I know that I'm going to find him, but I'm crapping bricks right now, literally." I was really that nervous, to be honest with you. People all over the place, I was letting them know, "Please, if you see this little boy, please." It was just horrible. It was horrible. It was a horrible experience. Lo and behold, Jeremiah was found in the far corner of the park, very far corner of the park. And he was spinning, as you know that they do. They spin, humming to himself and just spinning with a big smile on his face. He was fine. I tell you these 3 stories to let you know. Now, late 90s, early 2000s, I'm talking about the years, because Jeremiah was born 1997, early 2000s. There was something that was coming out, it was called a safety rope. I don't know how many of you can relate to this, but it resembled more of a dog leash, to be blunt. It was a rope in which you would put around your son's wrist that would ensure that he would not bolt away from you. I had thought about it. It was a controversial safety precaution at the time. But when you have a runner, I didn't care what anybody thought, just to let you know. I did not care. I had already 3 incidences where my son needed this rope, or the safety rope, or a leash, whatever you want to call it. And at the time when this rope first came out, there was no real customization of it. It was something you put around your son's wrist and that was it. So I purchased it. I put it around Jeremiah's wrist with the intention of always holding his hand physically within my hand. That was there as a safety measure. In case he bolted and yanked himself from my hand, at least there will be enough slack on that rope where I can hold on to that rope. He's not going to get far. But you can imagine the stares that I got. You can imagine the little whispers I heard from people, the constant glares from people. I didn't care. And guess what? It was the best decision I ever made. Now, if you purchase that, for example, when Elijah was born, which is 2011, it's gotten a little bit more elaborate where the safety rope is now customized to be a toddler book bag, right? So you put your toddler, put the book bag on the toddler, and you can tie it around their waist, but you still have a hold. There's another connection where you're holding the rope. And it looks adorable on the kid. Elijah looks great. He looked great wearing it. He's not doing it now. But I had it for Elijah, and it was perfect, wonderful. But at the time, this is what it was. I tell you that to tell you this. You do what you have to do to ensure that your son or your daughter has a better quality of life, and you do as well. There's a lot of self-care we forget about when we're raising our children. We need self-care. I think part of that self-care is just releasing your mind to knowing, if I do this, it's going to relieve stress from me. Who cares what people think? People are going to think what they think. At the end of the day, you're responsible for your child. So you do what you have to do, within legal means, of course, and with their best interest. This is what has to be done. And it worked out well. I tell you that to tell you it worked out well for them. Now, Jeremiah and Elijah both have really contrasting personalities. I will tell you that Jeremiah was diagnosed and is diagnosed with moderate to severe autism, developmental and intellectual disability. He's also diagnosed with psychosis, impulse disorder, and schizophrenia. I don't see much of that schizophrenic side of him, only when he gets really, really, really upset. And then everybody is afraid of him. But as I've mentioned to you before, I never really diagnosed my son or mentioned that about him because it's not a denial thing. It's a trusting in God thing. It's in trusting in the Lord, that the Lord is with them no matter what. And I still pray for their healing. And that's it. Now with Elijah is diagnosed with mild to moderate autism, and developmental learning disability. Totally contrasting personalities. Now, as I tell you that, I will tell you this. I was pleasantly surprised the other day that Jeremiah showed empathy, and I'm going to get to that. I mentioned earlier in this video about a surgery I had February 16th. But I'm just going to rewind it and tell you their contrast in personalities. Jeremiah has no filter, right? He's very honest. He's very black and white. And his perspective is a common sense perspective to a degree. But he's very logical. And he sees things like, it'll be fine. This is what it is. A happens, then B happens, but C will eventually happen. And that's it. Elijah is a little bit different. Elijah is a very sensitive child. Elijah understands how certain things take place. He's more aware of his surroundings, I'll put it that way. Where Jeremiah could care less what anybody thinks. I think that's one of his best qualities. He doesn't care what people think. He is who he is. But along with that comes some filter-free speaking. Now, I have thought about putting him on video. And so I have to really think that through, because some of the words he uses are controversial words that can stir some emotions up in some people. But this is what makes Jeremiah Jeremiah. And I'm thankful that he doesn't give a hoot what anybody thinks. So if you have an outfit that you want to try on and you want an honest opinion, you can look for my son. He's going to tell you exactly what you look like in it. That's just how he is. Now with Elijah is very careful about, and I hate to say it, he's a people pleaser. He's very sensitive to people. He's a very affectionate child, and he's very attached to me. But Elijah doesn't like hurting people's feelings. And if he has some behavioral outbursts, he's very remorseful and continues to say, I'm sorry throughout the day, which breaks my heart because it just shows what a sensitive little boy he is. Where with Jeremiah, if he does something, he does say, I'm sorry, mommy. But he leaves it alone. He's like, what's for dinner? He's just such an interesting character. And really, in reality, the both of them are. They're very different in personalities. And I love the way they interact with each other. It's very interesting. Both of them are black and white in their perspective on things. And so I wanted to tell you that Jeremiah showed me some empathy. Now it doesn't mean that he has zero empathy. He just shows it in a different way. I mentioned I had a surgery on February 16th. And this surgery entailed my pelvic floor muscles to be tightened, and so that's what had to be done. And they used ligaments from my right upper buttock to attach to the mesh to help bring things back up into place. And so my recovery, I'm still in recovery from it, but I'm nowhere near I once was. Now I have to clarify that my son Elijah lives with me. Jeremiah does not live with me. Jeremiah lives in a private home with several young men who are also special needs in various levels and things like that. But Jeremiah has a roommate in his bedroom, and there are staff that supervise them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Jeremiah has a structured setting, but it is not a group home. It's his own private home, literally 15 minutes from where I live, which is a blessing from the Lord. I can pick up my son whenever I feel like it. So on the weekends, I do pick up Jeremiah, and he stays the weekends with us, and we go to church on Sunday. And that's the routine we have. On this day before my surgery, I had to sit with my children, and I had to prepare them for several reasons. Elijah's very attached to me. I had to break down a little bit. I didn't want to get really specific with my surgery because they're both inquisitive. I didn't want to go there with them because they'll share my business with everybody in a very innocent way. But I had to tell Elijah what was going to happen and how there would be friends of mine who would pick him up from school, how mommy would not be able to, would have to spend 2 days in the hospital, things like that. With Jeremiah, I had to let him know because he's used to me picking him up on Fridays. Now, if you know about autism, you know you have to prepare for any changes. I had to prepare both of them, although Elijah adjusts much more readily to change. Jeremiah does not adjust that readily to change. However, with his age has come maturity. He's done excellent in that place where he knows change happens. I got to get over it. Oh, well, but I'm going to ask 50,000 questions in the middle of it. This day, I sat with my children in my living room right before my surgery. And I said, guys, I have something to share with you. Mommy's having surgery. And it's called a bladder prolapse surgery, stage 3, cystocele. That was the diagnosis I had. I'll let you look that up. I'm not going to get into it. But if you have questions and comments, please leave them down below. I said, this is what it is. I'm going to spend 2 nights in the hospital. Plus, I have to now recover after that, which will be about a month, Jeremiah. Upon which, Elijah's eyes start watering. And and I'm like, what's wrong, Elijah? It's okay. I'm fine. I don't want you to die. So my son has a high-pitched voice, different from his older brothers. Naturally, Jeremiah is a 26-year-old man. But Elijah has a high-pitched voice. I don't want you to die, Mom. If you die, I'm going to cry a lot. And it just broke my heart. He's really attached to me. And so he holds onto my arm and he's sobbing. And I said, Papi, I'm going to be fine. Mom's going to be fine. The Lord's not going to let anything crazy happen. Believe me. Grandma's praying for Mom. Don't worry. Trying to console him. He slowly starts to wind down. Upon which, my oldest son, Jeremiah, looks at his brother and goes, just like that, because he's very dramatic. And he goes, What? Why are you getting so upset? Now, I had mentioned to them that the surgery would be 2 hours and that I would wake up, Jeremiah says. I don't know what you're so upset for, Elijah. She's going to be fine. They're just going to shut her off for 2 hours and then they're going to turn her back on, just like they did to me when I decided to jump out the window. They turned me off for 2 hours and then they told me, put your arms out. And I said, that's right, like Jesus Christ on the cross, right? And then they turned me back on. After 2 hours, they turned me back on. When I tell you I lost it laughing, I laughed so hard because I realized that Jeremiah has that black and white perspective, very logical understanding, common sense, like it's going to be fine. And then, upon which Elijah's like, oh yeah, Mom. So he helps his brother out. Jeremiah helps me out because I was a little upset that Elijah was upset, crying, thinking I'm going to die. And Jeremiah's like, you guys got to get a grip. Okay? She's going to be fine. I love it. I love that Jeremiah can just snap me out of any funk I could ever be in because of his perspective is like, A's going to happen, but then B's going to happen. And then eventually C will happen and we'll all be fine. So the fact that I may think sometimes, or the fact that you may think sometimes that your child is not in touch with that empathetic side because of the autism, they have it. They just show it in a different way. And it's a godsend at times when they are not so in touch with it, where they're so upset with themselves. It helps to just cover things up and not see the dramatic side of things like my baby Elijah. But Jeremiah snapped us both out of it. It's incredible. The mind of an autistic person is just incredible. How they are able to see things in such a way. And so fast forward a few weeks later, Jeremiah's dad brought him to me because I had missed him. I mean, I was getting really sad about it. I'm used to seeing my son on the weekends, but I couldn't drive yet. I still had not enough strength on my right leg from where they pulled the ligaments and attached it to the mesh through my surgery, So when Jeremiah comes in, I'm limping pretty good. He looks at me, he goes, I think you need to lay down. That's what I think. I think you need to lay down. That's what I think. And I said, I've been laying down. He goes, no, like you need to grab the cane. Where's the cane? He goes into his little brother's bedroom and gets the cane, which I had totally forgotten about. And to be honest with you, I don't want to look like I'm 80 years old with a cane anyway. He brings out the cane and he gives it to me. Then he gives me his arm and walks me to my bed so I can lay back down. When I tell you that was a moment for me, and quote unquote, that was my God sighting for the day. That was my God sighting for the day. Because it had been a long time I hadn't seen that side of my son. And so God will provide those little moments for you to remind you, I'm in control, though you may not think of it that way, though it has been disappointing, though it has been stressful, though you are overwhelmed and feel absolutely alone, I am in control. I pray that was somehow encouraging for you. There's a scripture I want to leave you with, and I'm just going to put my reading glasses so I can read it. Numbers 6 is in the book of Numbers from the Bible, chapter 6, verse 24 to 26. And it says, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. I pray that for the peace of the Lord to be upon you. I'm going to make some more YouTube videos whenever I get the chance to, but this is where we are now, and be blessed.